How's it going, guys? Thanks so much for clicking on this video. This is a CDL Talent Roundtable discussion where all of us as talent got together, put our heads together, and basically talked on each and every single CDL roster heading into MW2. We chat on what was their journey last season, what they've currently constructed, and the way that this roster could look or this team could look moving into the MW2 year. So major thank you to all the talent for joining in on this, for having these conversations, as well as to Bryce, who actually orchestrated all of this stuff to come together. Now the full-on VODs will have a full part 1 and a full part 2. Those links rather will be in the description of this video that you can feel free to check out to watch it more in long form. If you want to check out certain teams, certain snippets, I will have that here located on the channel. If you haven't seen your favorite teams upload yet, I promise it's coming. We talked about all 12 of them. So make sure to let us know, whether through different content pieces, if you want to tweet, comment, like, subscribe, any way that you guys can show us some support to let us know that you guys like content like this. We would love to hear it. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback, output on ways that we could even make it better. So without further ado, I'll leave you to it. Enjoy the video, and I'll see you back here on the channel really soon.
All right then, let's move on from them and talk about our next team, Toronto Ultra. Certainly a fan favorite, certainly even a talent favorite, probably.
I love this team.
Same. Big fan.
So last year, Toronto Ultra became an example for most of us about having strength and depth is great, but not when you can't figure out who you want to change out straight away. They had I don't know how to put this, maybe a middling year. Like it felt like they were good at points, and then you're like, hey, this team is great everywhere but hard point. Yeah, they won.
They got sucked up into the vortex that was Vanguard.
Facts.
Yeah, they got spat out. They remember they couldn't win a hard point, kept winning their S&Ds. Like there was talk for ages about this team dropping players, but nobody could figure out exactly who they should drop.
I mean, it sounded like there was decisions being made or trying to be made left, right, and center from
Facts. Even after
we were gathering.
Major 3?
Yeah, we were hearing some shit throughout the whole year, and it was just like, right, okay, well, who's actually in charge here? Blah blah blah. In the end, I feel like the coaching staff got what they wanted, which was keeping the team together. I think that's what they wanted to do again. I'm sure we'll get to that. Yeah, it felt like there was definitely heaving and hoeing going on in the background, I would say.
You know who killed Ultra?
Scrappy.
Scrappy killed Ultra. If Scrappy didn't exist as their sub, they probably would have kept the team for this year. Like they probably
only played one match. Bryce, he only played one match last year, and they were just like hot skies, stars are blinging in the moon. Like they're all up. That's the guy. That's our guy, without question.
Oh, he dropped a 1.3 in the series too. Like,
yeah,
why not? Like 1.3.
But
I'm not mad at the decision either.
Oh no, and on top of that, you had Hixie in there as well. Like Hixie's really good as well, and obviously, like, look, the hype's around Scrappy has to be said. But the fact that their subs are so good give them a dilemma that they possibly could have done without at the same time.
I feel like last year with Toronto Ultra, like they had their moments where they were looking like one of the best teams in the game. Even at their own event, they ended up getting a top 3. But then everything after that just started to fall off because teams knew how they play. Like when you're a team that stayed together for that long, you start to understand what they're trying to do on the map. Insight's going to be the post-up player. Cammy's going to be the guy that's running around, switching whenever he needs to. Bance is always going to go on the flank, and Kleenex is going to be in your face trying to fight a 1v2 gunfight every single time. And I feel like towards the end of the year, what made them fall apart was simply their teamwork. They didn't have it anymore. They always had the raw talent to get them through search and destroys. Insight 1v3. The guy was gross at that game mode. But everything else, when it came to the teamwork aspect, that's when they started to fall off. And you can just tell whenever you watch them in hard points, I feel like Bance is always that player that's going on late flanks, leaving Kleenex to fight 2v1 gunfights. And that's why Kleenex used to put up the stinkers on maps, because he's the only SMG fighting in these close range gunfights. I feel like... Go ahead, Bryce.
I have a different take on that, actually. I think their teamwork didn't fall off. I just don't think it worked on this game. I don't think it worked on Vanguard. If you watch some of their controls, I think they had at some point the stats like the highest attacking rounds, because they would snap in, they would do what they needed to. The S&D put paid to the fact that they could work together well as a team. I think what caught them off guard is that Vanguard at points turned into a knife fight in a cupboard, and it was just chaos. And because they are calm, cool, collected, this is what we are doing, they tried to set that up too much. They were playing Cold War Hardpoint for the
and you can't do
majority of
that.
the year, and it works in that game because you can finesse and you can get away with it. And I don't think it worked in Vanguard, and I think that was frustrating as hell for them to try and deal with, because every other team could turn that tempo to 11, and I don't think they had that in the respawns. I don't think they had an 11, but their 10 was very, very good. They were very, very consistent. They could break things, but they just weren't able to get the setups they wanted to. It looked like, if we were playing Cold War again, the team probably would have still dominated and done very, very well. But with Vanguard, I feel like they were just missing it. And then when they eventually started to win a few hard points, they were always behind, and they were always never performing where they were supposed to be. And it was always, oh, we've got Scrappy ready to just take one of you out. And the pressure just must have just been kicking them in the head every game they lost, every time they lost a map, every time they couldn't win a fucking hard point. Ultra were getting kicked in the teeth, and they knew that something was going to change, and it broke them. I think about halfway through the year, they were broken.
I just kind of want to just say though, like the back end of their year, I know in all seriousness, like they want to be up there in finals. Wasn't too horrible though, was it? Realistically, well, third place obviously their own major, 5th and 6th major, 4th, 5th and 6th at champs. Like it's not horrendous, yeah, but I think it was the standards that were set in Cold War, wasn't it? That was the problem. That was absolutely the problem.
And one thing too, I agree with what Bryce said in terms of like, I felt like it was a constant like battle and a tug of war of like play style versus how Vanguard plays. Like we all know, like the difference between how Cold War was versus Vanguard and the differences between that. And I think that Toronto was constantly struggling with like, okay, what things can we bring over into this game? What things do we have to adapt to? I also feel like the SMG line struggled greatly, especially in those hardpoint games that we were talking about. We could argue if it was, a matter of play style, if it was a matter of just not putting up kills. I think it was probably a combination of the both. And if you do look at stats among all SMG lines, like you're talking about, both subs in terms of like hardpoint, they were number 2 among all SMG duos in engagements per 10 minutes. And they were number 11 among all SMG duos in damage. So they were basically the speed of Boston with Vivid and Nero, but with the actual slaying capabilities of Paris. And it's like, if you have that mix combined with Cammy, who's not having as good of a year, and Sard, who I still feel like was solid, it equals out into what we all know is the case. The SMGs are so important. If you don't have an AR that's playing the same way that he should, et cetera, it really spirals from there. I feel like it started and it technically finishes with the SMGs just not being at the same level.
Yep, and I completely agree with you. Just basically not playing at the same pace. You're talking about Toronto Ultra during the Corridor season, structure the entire time. Everything that they needed to do as a team, they knew exactly where they needed to be and how they were going to set up. Now going into the Vanguard season, they tried to play with structure, but it's Vanguard. You simply couldn't because you didn't know what the hell was going on. So that's the thing. I felt like Toronto Ultra were just always trying to put themselves in the best position, in the best setup possible, and not really making adjustments on the fly. That's why that team struggled, because you can't go out there, all right, we're going to be able to set up. We're fully set up in the back, but what happens if a guy gets a 2-piece? Now what do we have to do? Now we have to make an adjustment. But at that point, Vance is thinking in the back of his mind, I think I'm going to hit this flank right here. And he does that flank, they get broken. Kleenex is at 21 and 40, and then it's just completely off guard. Like Toronto Ultra, compared to Cold War, was obviously great with teamwork. Last year, they struggled off. And then going into this year with their roster changes, I feel like this team is going to be one of the top squads.
All right, I think we have to talk about the main man, what looks like their new franchise player. Vance is gone. They have a new star in ascendancy, probably one of the most exciting players of this season. Sir Scrappy has arrived, a man who will not be quiet in any regard. How do we feel about like, I mean, don't get me wrong, this guy has delusional confidence where he even knew he was joining the roster. What do you think?
Honestly, for me, I think the league is going to benefit from his personality more so than anything. I think I honestly believe that he is going to be one of the favorite players from the fans this year by far. I think his brand overall, and I know we're maybe divulging from what we should be talking about, but that whole thing is going to be good for the league. It's going to be great for Toronto Ultra. He's not only all of these things in terms of personality, he is also very, very, very good at Call of Duty. I mean, I honestly think he is going to be one of the standout players of the year. Not just because of the whole package. Like, he has it. They have struck gold. Literally struck gold.
Do we believe it is a double-edged sword how he is presenting himself.
No.
'Cause at the moment, all the pressure is going to be on him. He has shit talked everybody he can.
Yep.
He has put himself out there as basically the second coming of the Almighty, right? Everybody is ready to watch him play Call of Duty at this level week in and week out. Do we think that pressure gets to him at any point? Because this isn't challenges anymore, right?
Nah, I mean, if he's weak mentally, maybe. But something tells me if somebody's talking that much trash and still playing well, like last year how he did in Challengers, he's playing great and talking that much shit, and then coming into a pro match and dominating in that match as well.
Yeah,
I think he's got the confidence to be able to deal with whatever people throw at him. But it'll definitely be interesting to see how it actually plays out. But talking about this Toronto team, I think a lot of pressure is going to be on STUDYY. Like, I think that's the guy that has to be good on this team.
Yeah.
Like, we know we're going to get out of Kleenex. Like, the guy's just extremely aggressive. But like with STUDYY, like, will he bring that same search and destroy level that we saw early on last year with the Rocker? Can he get back to superstar level that we saw in Cold War? Like, that's kind of what they're hoping for. And that'll be the storyline that I think really paints the picture for this team. But in Respawn overall, for like Ultra, like, they should be better at Respawn this year. Like, their entire culture of this team has been search and destroy. Even when they were winning events, like, they weren't the greatest hardpoint team. They still hardpoint here and there. But like, I think this team, that's where the huge culture shift comes in, is that I think they are poised to have a really good Respawn team.
Okay, I like that.
I completely agree.
it almost
Insight
feels,
on this game. Insight on this game. I'm feeling positive about it.
Yeah,
Non-EU biased aside, I'm feeling
feel like
positive.
insight on
Landy.
this game, we know like him and Methods, they should have a good year in this game. It's nice and slow and steady wins the race. But when you talk about this team overall, for me, like Ant said, he thinks that STUDY's the most important. And I feel like STUDY is going to be the most important player alongside the Kleenex, because now Kleenex actually has someone he can work with. He doesn't have a guy that's going to be setting him up in 1v2 gunfights. Both of those guys are really aggressive players. So they're just going to be flying left and right, trading whenever they need to. I feel like STUDY and Kleenex are going to complement each other so well. And when you have a raw player in Insight who's just going to be stationary, holding down preems, getting the kills, getting the necessary kills, and then Scrappy, he's going to be all over the map. I'm not afraid of Scrappy at all when it comes to the Pro League. Guys talking smack, the guy's backing it up. He's ready for the moment. I feel like this Toronto Ultra roster is going to be a lot better than they were last year when it comes from teamwork-wise, when it comes from Respawn. Obviously, the S&D was on point last year, but I feel like overall this team is going to be top 3 all year long.
Oh, okay.
all year.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of hard kills on this team.
It's difficult, man.
Yeah.
No,
It's like insight
very
through the
difficult.
search and destroy. We know they're going to play the S&Ds nice and slow and steady. But when you're averaging, when you're allowing these players on your team to actually get kills, like Scrappy, he's going to go out there and get his. With Kleenex now playing alongside STUDY, he's going to be back to that raw S&G slayer. I feel like this team is going to have the talent to slay with the best and then use their teamwork, which is like slowly developing now with the new team, to eventually try to push them through towards the end of the year.
I'm quite surprised how quiet Chance is, because Bance isn't on this team anymore. So
Yeah,
we
I
can
was
like
gonna
him
say,
now.
Benjamin!
Yeah, he's the biggest Vance fan.
I don't know. I'm kind of negative about this team. I'm not gonna lie. I just don't
Whoa.
think I see it. I think Toronto Ultra lost sight of what they like. It's like they're gonna be good. Don't get me wrong. They're gonna be a good team. They're gonna be like in contention, fighting for top spots. I just don't think they get anywhere near the level of success they had in Cold War. I don't see them being consistently top 2. I don't think I see them consistently being top 3. Like, certainly at a few tournaments, they will make those runs, like depending on how like the brackets work out and whatnot. But like, I just don't have a ton of faith in, like, I have faith in STUDY. Like, even when he had a bad Vanguard, he was still one of the best S&D players in the game. So there's like a certain degree of, I know he'll be good. I just don't know about like the top dog kind of thing. And even if Scrappy wants to be the top dog, like the bread and butter of Toronto Ultra was the communication, was the teamwork. And like, I don't think these 4 are going to be able to replicate that nearly as much. And I don't think like the sort of slang power, star power, like makes up for that gap. So I think they'll be about as good as they were last year from like an organization standpoint. Maybe have a tournament or two where they like pop off, but I do think breaking up the team was a mistake in my mind, and I just don't
agree with that.
Anywhere near the
They lost their coach too. We can't forget
That's
about
what I
that.
was
Yeah,
gonna say.
Marky
They
D is
lost both
a
coaches.
crucial piece.
Like, this is for Toronto, it's definitely the turning of a page, right? Like, so this is a roster that was been together for years. Like, actually, we don't remember. This is the first time Toronto Ultra has actually made a roster move in the offseason since the very formation of the CDL. So they like to keep their teams together.
No, they drop Methods.
you know what I'm saying, from title to title, like whatever in MW 2019, they kept methods on the team coming into Cold War. So like they've never really made an off-season move outside of whenever they originally formed the roster. Like they have typically kept the same team moving into every year. And considering the roster that they did have, like I said, and then losing Marquee B, like that is definitely the one doubt that I do have. I feel like I'm high on Toronto, but I also am at the same time like look at it from the same perspective of chance. Like I wonder if their one demise could be the victim of the way that they want to play the game. Like I wonder if Insight and Kleenex are going to want to keep the same way that they previously played, keep that same system. And then you have Standy or maybe Scrappy who are coming in who have a conflicting way of how they want to play. I don't know. It just feels like they're going to have some interesting waters to try to navigate. Granted, I think it's honestly good problems that they have. It's not one of these situations where we're sitting here like, yeah, Toronto absolutely got worse. Like, no, we're not having that conversation necessarily. But still, I feel like they could. The one problem that they could have is all of these new changes that are going on, the changing of the guard, the turning of the page. It feels like there could be some early struggles of trying to figure out what really is the new Toronto Ultra moving forward.
I like that. I think that's a good way to end this one. I mean, Mayhem and Marky have gone. Flux, who was their analyst, but basically another coach because I think he did a lot of the team talks. He's now taking over. I don't know if they've got any new blood in on that side of it. I haven't seen any. But yeah, I think that's the way to look at it. This is a new Ultra. It's a different Ultra. And if you're a fan of the last Ultra, there are some inklings of bits left, but they've tried to go a completely different direction. Only time will tell. Like I said, mostly positive, and we think they've got some really good players. Negative is that we're worried about what the teamwork's going to happen, and I suppose the only way to find out is to see how that all goes throughout the season. Which leads us on to our next team, which is next for a very good reason.
I was going to say one last thing because I'm going to slide here in a second. I got to take care of some things. To Chance's point, that's a really cool storyline throughout the season because if you look at the last Ultra, put a button on. If you look at the last Ultra team, they can win events, right? They could have won events. So this is a massive risk taken by Ultra, like bringing in two different players into this team and breaking that up in what has been a very hard league to have a consistent force and threat. So it will be interesting. I do like the team, and I appreciate joining you guys today, but I got to bounce, guys. So enjoy.
All right, brother. Catch you later, man.
Team.
No worries.
OSU is garbage.
I want to button on Ant's point,
All right,
actually.
yeah.
I'm going to button on Ant's point because that's actually what I wanted to say of just the idea that, yes, Toronto's going to be a good team, like without question in my mind. They're going to be a ton of fun to watch. But I like what Ant said of like, I don't see them like actually winning a tournament. I think that might be a bit too far. I just don't think I see it with these four. Maybe they get better. Maybe they show off. Maybe Scrappy is the god that like he's talked himself up to be, but they'll be good. I don't think they're going to win.
All right. Wow. That was more negative than I was expecting for Ultra, but we move.